Cuyahoga County Public Works Procurement and Contracting Committee meeting for Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023 will be called to order. Roll call, please.
And just as a reminder to all who are in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Tuma,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Ms. Conwell,
Present.
Mr. Sweeney,
Present.
Ms. Turner.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Okay, is there any public comment this morning?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
All right, and could I have approval of minutes from the March 8th, 2023 meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if you could please read the first matter referred to committee this morning.
Resolution number 2023-0058, authorizing an amendment to contract number 1030 with Duck Fabricators Incorporated for fire and smoke dampers, combination fire and smoke dampers, and systems inspection, repair, and replacement services.
Okay, and if you could just please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Matt Reimer with the Department of Public Works. So this item is exercising of up to a 2-year option on the existing contract with Doug Fabricators. We're doing it for less than 2 years to better align with the budget cycle and our fiscal appropriations. This will take us through from the date of the current contract expiration at the end of April, May 1st through the end of 2024 is the period that this amendment is intended to cover. This program is our inspection, our code required and council ordinance required fire, smoke, and combination fire and smoke damper inspection program. We have approximately 3,000 fire and smoke and combination dampers throughout our county facilities, the vast majority of which are at the Justice Center complex. And this provides the expertise and the skill to inspect, repair, and replace as needed those apparatuses that protect fire-rated assemblies in buildings, as well as provide smoke control in the event of a fire. These are all code required and, as I mentioned, also ordinance required. And we are on our third contract here, and this will extend, our second contract, and we're extending the existing. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, first, just if you could, just a brief explanation, what's a damper?
So a fire damper is an apparatus. It's a mechanical apparatus in the duct system of a building HVAC system that if detects heat or melts a fusible link, it'll mechanically close that damper to prevent the spread of flame through a fire-rated wall. Similarly, a smoke damper is one that if there's a fire alarm activation from a smoke detection, it'll also close to prevent the propagation of smoke throughout the building's HVAC system. So, and then a combination damper is one that mechanically closes to protect both the fire-rated flame propagation or smoke propagation.
Okay, and are these required by state law or?
These are required by a number of codes to include Ohio Building Code, but specifically NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, life safety codes, and various HVAC codes, and then also by county ordinance.
Okay, and then as far as the inspection and repair, is there a flat fee for that, or how does that work?
So we provide the inventory of the dampers that are required, and the proposal is based on the labor that's expected to take. We have, for this particular amendment, for the partial year of May 1st through December 31st of 2023, a price proposal of $254,000. And then for the full year in 2024 for $394,800, and then we have a contingency amount for materials if they need to replace, and that makes up the total that is requested on this amendment. That is in line with the previous contract, the 3-year contract that we are extending. There's approximately a 4% increase on the fee for labor rate increases.
Okay, will this contract be bid out next time, or?
Yes. So it was a competitive request for proposals in 2017, which we received 2 respondents. In 2020, which we received 2 different respondents, and then we're exercising an option period, but it will be competed again in 2024.
Okay, and then typically how long is an inspection? Does the building have to be shut down, or how's that work?
So the inspections occur throughout the year. Given building, they have a code-defined inspection cycle where they have to be inspected visually, and then the following year or the next frequency they need to be inspected mechanically to actually see their operation tested. and then repairs follow if any of those are deficient. So that's the 3-year inspection cycle that we generally have for each of these dampers.
Okay, I'll open the floor up to my colleagues. I see Ms. Conwell has a question.
Through the chair, to Mr. Reimer, how are these paid? Like on invoices?
Yes, so they provide monthly invoices through our normal departmental pay application process for work that is completed during the inspection, as the inspections occur during the year. So
Okay,
typically
so
monthly.
some of this funding, does it all get used or?
Not, especially the contingency line items, they may not get used. We have not expended our full contingency from the previous contract that will be expiring at the end of April, but we have used it in particular for duct services at the Jane Edna Hunter building, as well as controls, repairs, for the pneumatic controls to these dampers in the Jail 1 structure, which was just done this last year in 2022.
So through the chair, at the end of the year, does it get decertified, the contract, or it gets decertified, the funds get put back in? How does that work?
So they are still on the contract line, just unexpended, and they're still part of the
roll over
encumbrance.
to next year?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my understanding.
And then how long is the expected life of the smoke damper?
A fair question. We expect, I mean, they're intended to be part of the building system as it's designed and installed. Now, certainly we have the capability to replace them, but they're expected to be part of the life cycle of the HVAC system. So a number of years. Yeah.
Okay, because I don't know if you go back that far when we first started and we had the big smoke, fire and smoke damper
Correct.
issues with the jail. So.
I do recall, I came in at the tail end of the actual construction project, and we're in sustainment mode of those systems, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Mr. Miller?
So, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Reimer, am I correct that since we've been doing this program for quite a while, that all of the dampers in Cuyahoga County have been inspected at least once and most of them multiple times? Is that correct?
All of them multiple times, Councilman, to answer your question. As I mentioned, the sustainment phase of this cycle on the heels of the major construction initiative that Councilwoman Conwell just mentioned began in 2017. So there have been as many as 5 or 6 inspection cycles, both mechanically and visually, on each of these fire dampers. We have picked up some new systems along the way. For instance, we added the police building, Tower 2, when we acquired that building, all of those fire damper systems to this contract. So things like that where we have building acquisitions we're adding, and we'll pick up the inspection and testing cycle on those as we go.
And my second question is for the inspection work that was done in 2022. Could you give me a ballpark estimate on what percentage of the inspections resulted in no action being required, and what percentage resulted in repair of the damper being required, and what percentage resulted in replacement of the damper being required?
Without my documentation, it is truly a ballpark, Councilman, but I will say that of the, let me go back. So let me answer it in terms of dollar amounts, and hopefully that provides you, and I can follow up if you need some more specific information. But we had a base price for the third full year of the duct fabricators contract of $378,000. We exercised a $42,000 thereabouts contingency spend for the repair work that was needed to Jail 1 fire dampers, specifically because the pneumatic controls to them were failing, and we needed to correct that with modernized controls so that they were properly, so by percentage, 42,000 against a $378,000 base is what we expended in 2022 for additional repairs from the inspection cycles that were deficient. I hope that helps answer your question.
So, it sounds like maybe somewhere between 10 and 20% required some action.
I would say compared to previous years in the contract, that was a higher spend compared to the first 2 years of the 2020 contract. So 10%, I'd say, would be the higher end of the repair and replacement phase at the end of an inspection cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any other questions? Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reimer, it's nice to see you, as always.
See you, Councilman.
I got to hear the word propagate 3 times, which was nice in regards to how smoke moves. You expanded my vocabulary. Just on the point of Dale, and I have another question, is when you said the 42 out of 300, or 32 out of the 340, does that money go back into the general operating fund for Public Works and be spent somewhere else, and then next budget you get more money, or that money just sits there?
So on the contract encumbrance, the previous contracts were funded because they were more of a capital effort from our general fund capital appropriation. This particular amendment, there's a distinction that now we're in substantially the sustainment mode. This will be funded out of the Internal Services Fund from this amendment forward. But in either case, any dollars not expended on that contract encumbrance would go back to the general fund, either for internal service fund uses or the capital appropriation, depending on which funds come off.
And thank you. Just one more on that line. Would it go back into the, would it be spent on, could it be spent on something else? So within a year, you know you're not going to save or use it, and it goes back and push someplace else just in with your internal budgeting? Sometimes you're looking for money, right? Okay,
Right.
we can take a little bit out of here, a little bit out of here, and I'm just processing it. I don't know what my thought is. Or it just stays there the whole time, and then next time it just recycles for this.
Right, Councilman, typically that would, I believe that would typically happen at the end of the contract term versus at the end of the year-to-year cycle.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that the Justice Center is the main one. With this building, is it a triple net lease that we have to do everything, or the building's maintained by the owners?
So this contract does not cover this building because of the lease arrangement with Geist Properties. Geist Properties would be responsible for any fire, smoke, or combination fire smoke dampers in this building, which I'm sure there are many.
Mr. Chair, is this your last piece of legislation?
For me, for today, yes, but I'll be staying, Councilman.
Just because I saw you, how are the generators doing at the inspectors? I mean, the medical examiners. That was a big one for me. And it was we have a large project. Is it on time and
We
moving
do.
forward? That was a pretty cool one.
On time is a relative term because of the lead time associated with generators, but we have placed the
Thank
generator
you. That
order.
answer is good enough for me.
And, yeah, it's an extensive lead time. We'll be building that, we'll be building it this coming year, all the infrastructure throughout the season, but we won't expect the generators till next spring.
Yeah, because that was, when I see you, I think about that one. And other things, of course.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Conwell?
Through the chair to Mr. Reimer, can the departments add in their reports, future reports going forward, what contract amount wasn't used? So for example, this contract, so the next time it comes up, you could kind of add to your presentation what wasn't used from the last time, so we can.
We certainly can, and through the chair to Councilwoman Conwell, I will follow up to this committee with, since we're at the end of a term at the end of April, as to what the status of the contract dollars on the original contract were and what we're moving into the amendment cycle if approved.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, moving along on second reading would be okay for this, I'm guessing, based on the time frame?
You're not going to believe what I'm about to say, Councilman, because I
believe
don't
it.
usually say it, but this can go 3 readings.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
yes, I'm not. Okay, with that, then, I'll make a motion for moving R 2023-0058 on for second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move R 2023-0058 on for second reading. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Reimer.
Thank you.
Next resolution, please.
Resolution number 2023-0059, authorizing an amendment to contract number 1649 with Trans Systems Corporation of Ohio for design engineering services in connection with rehabilitation of Hilliard Road Bridge number 08.57 over Rocky River and Valley Parkway in the cities of Lakewood and Rocky River.
Okay, and if you could just state your name for the record.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Tom Sotak representing Public Works this morning. Mr. Chairman, Public Works is requesting to submit award contract amendment number 2, Part 2 modified with Trans Systems Corporation of Ohio for the Hilliard Road Bridge 08.57, in layman's terms, the big bridge over Rocky River. The amount of $1,626,937. The primary goal of this contract amendment is to allow the Department of Public Works to complete plans and specifications to maintain the Hilliard Road, build the Hilliard Road Bridge per Title 55 of the ORC. The second amendment for additional money is needed for changes to the final plans and specifications based on the condition of the bridge discovered during evaluation and design development.
Okay.
Take any questions.
Yeah, so what precipitated the additional funding? Like, what was wrong with the design?
Okay, so if you back up, typically on large bridges, we typically do a 2-part contract. That's normal because especially if you're using federal money, you have to go through a type, size, location, alternative study to find out what the appropriate structure would be for a given location. So then, once that's known, then we go to the final Part 2 because we know what we're actually building. In this case, we did this previously. This bridge, because of its location, it's over a park, it's got a lot of sensitive areas there. There was a, through the NEPA process, the public involvement process, this kind of, we went through quite a long, involved process with this. So originally, we were going to go with a more of a regular type structure. That didn't cut it through the environmental process. The original structure was historical. It was an arch and park, so on and so forth. So we had a value engineering study that was completed with the project. One of the things that came out of that as well, we could go with, one of the things we were looked at was to go with some type of arch, but use the existing foundation, which would be pretty good, it looked good, save money. Fortunately, we looked in it farther. The foundations really, there was a lot of questions with the existing foundations that, for a structure that we want to last 75 to 100 years, it just didn't seem appropriate for this. So then we went back to the drawing board at that point, and we came up, with the single arch type structure, which kind of is in line with what the environmental documentation required in the NEPA process, the public involvement process required. So hence, that's why we have the modified agreement for, modified Part 2 agreement for this structure.
Okay, one of the questions I have is, as far as the effective date of the contract, it says upon signature of the county executive. Is there something more specific in the actual wording of the contract, or is it? I just want to know when it starts, or when
It would start upon execution of the
and
contract.
when do you anticipate that to be?
I would say probably, boy, Nicole would be good at this. I would say probably through our normal process, we weren't going to ask for a suspension on, so we'd just go through the normal
Okay.
process. So we're probably looking this is March, probably May or June, probably June.
When do you anticipate the project being completed, the bridge?
The bridge is in fiscal year 26.
Okay.
So that's federal fiscal year 26. So that means we could start construction as early as summer of 25. But realistically, it probably won't start construction until sometime in 26. And it'll probably be a 2.5-year project. So that puts us, right now, that would probably put us late 28, early 29 for a completion of the actual construction.
This is quite a project.
It is, and actually so when you look at it, the total cost of the contract with this amendment would be just a little over $5 million. I hope I got that, yeah, a little over $5 million. And so when you think about the estimated cost right now is about 60 million. So it's under 10%. We're looking at about 8%, which is, normally for a bridge type contract, you usually look in the 5 to 10% range for consulting services on this. And it is obviously with the arch, there is some more,
Right.
complicating
Is this
features.
bridge going to be completely shut down? Are they going to be open lanes, or how's that?
It will be shut down. There's just no way with the existing type of structure that
Right.
you can really safely
Got it.
maintain traffic.
Okay, I'll open the floor to questions. Any questions from my colleagues? Ms. Conwell?
Through the chair, to Mr. Solstek, I want to follow up on what the chair asked. I think I've never seen that signature of county executive, so I don't know if the law department would like to weigh in why we have that sort of language.
Certainly. It's actually language we changed sometime in the middle of last year, I think, because we never know when it's going to get through all of the steps after it's been approved here. So this way, we can say specifically when we know the definitive start date when it's signed that way, after it's approved through the legislative process and and all the processes it goes through in purchasing.
Is this only for, through the chair, is this only for bridge projects or?
No, to the chairman, no, we've been doing this for everything, I think, for about at least the last 6-8 months now, maybe a year.
First time I've seen it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's kind of stood out, so it's something we're aware of now, so. You don't, to the law director, you don't foresee any issues with that as far as start dates?
No, it's easier to figure out when the start date is doing it this way.
Okay. Okay, and any other questions? Okay, seeing none, so we could go through the full, obviously this is quite a time frame with it, so we'll go for the full 3 readings here. So with that, if there's no other questions, I'll make a motion for R 2023-0059 to be moved on for second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
You have a motion and a second for second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the ayes have it. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could please read the next piece of legislation.
Resolution number 2023-0060, making an award on requisition number 11369 to Katz Construction in the amount not to exceed $3,069,263.91 for resurfacing and rehabilitation of Coventry Road from Fair Hill Road to Euclid Heights Boulevard in the city of Cleveland Heights.
Okay, and again, just for the record, your name, please, and
Yes, once again, Tom Sotak, representing Public Works. Public Works is requesting approval to enter in a contract with Katz Construction for an anticipated cost of $3,069,263.91. The project consists of resurfacing and rehabilitation of Coventry Road from Fair Hill Road / North Park Boulevard to Euclid Heights Boulevard, including pavement base repairs, ADA compliant curb ramps, refiguring of the traffic medians, and splinter islands, which that's a new term for me, splinter islands, but traffic islands, at the intersection of Coventry and Fairmont Boulevard and Scarborough Road. And this project would include new traffic signals, and it is a collaboration between the county and the city of Cleveland Heights. They have money and obviously a significant interest in this project. Going forward, be happy to entertain any questions on this.
as far as legislation discusses the intersection having new traffic signals, can you just describe what those signals are going to be like? I understand that currently the way it's set up, there's a little bit of a confusion out in that area as far as the traffic signals.
From what the plans have, they're reconfiguring the islands. There are new traffic signals. I know they're putting new curb ramps and new crosswalks in. And I know the city was looking at improved lighting, because I know that if you've ever been out there, it's a very confusing intersection. It's confusing enough as a driver, let alone being a pedestrian trying to navigate that. So so a lot of times what you do is you put islands in there to give a little like resting area and, like a leapfrog, you got a place to, like a safe haven.
Right.
So and there's some reconfiguration there too. So the city kind of took the lead on that, because that was a big concern for them.
Okay.
Going back a long time, as long as, I can remember.
Right. Okay, so the city's pretty much handling that, okay. And then, what was the rating on that road?
The payment rating, I could get that for you, Mr. Tuma.
Yeah, if you could
yeah.
just let the committee know that.
Yeah, I just don't want to make something up, so.
And then, have the businesses been contacted and as far as like the road work that there's going to be,
Well, they will be. That would better be, we're managing the
More of a
project.
city- more of a city
For
type thing.
Cleveland Heights, yeah. So that'd be a normal project that we'll go through them. Typically, at least in Cleveland Heights, when I've worked there before, they typically like to have a meeting at, City Hall or something like that. It depends what the city administration feels is appropriate for their community.
that's fine. And then as far as the closures, will the road be closed? Will there be single lanes or one way, or how's that going to work? Do you know?
This is going to be maintained traffic. This will maintain traffic on
Okay.
this.
All right, I'll open up questions to my colleagues. Any questions? No? Okay. And we see the time frame is February of 2024. The start date, has work been started already? I see it's February 20, no, that's just running behind. Okay.
You'd have to ignore that one. That's,
Okay.
right now, we're looking, we have a grant that we were secured from DOPWIC issue 1, so we have to have notice, sell the project before July 1st, so that's why we want to
Okay.
try to get this moving along.
So on timing, I don't want to slow anything down, but can this go full 3 readings, or do you need to get moving because of contractual issues?
Mr. Chairman, we'd respectfully request a second reading suspension on this, just
Okay.
because of the construction season.
I was just
so on
trying
and
to
so
see if we can get all the legislation on 3 readings, but, okay, I tried. So with that, I have no problem with that. I'll make a motion for second reading suspension on R 2023-0060. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if we could move on to the next piece of legislation.
Resolution number 2023-0061, authorizing a revenue-generating agreement with the City of Berea in the amount not to exceed $550,000 for maintenance and repair of storm and sanitary sewers.
Okay, and again, for the record, if you could just state your name.
Once again, Tom Sotak, representing Public Works. Yes, the Department of Public Works is requesting approval of this annual sewer maintenance revenue generating agreement between the City of Berea and the Cuyahoga County Department of Public Works. This agreement is for up to $550,000 in revenue-generating funds with a term from April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024. Primary goals for the county to continue assist with sanitary and storm sewer maintenance within the City of Berea. Obviously, the project is located in Berea, and this is Council District 5. So we have been in agreement with Berea since 2017. Just to give you a little background information. We have 38 member communities now. Berea joined our team in 2017, so they're one of the newer communities that we brought on. And they started out in 2017 at $150,000 a year, and now they're up to $550,000. So I think record shows, I think they like the services we've been providing them out there. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
The agreements between the cities and the county with respect to the storm and sanitary sewers, they're a really good partnership, I think. And I know that from my time in Parma when we went with the county, the amount of flooding that the city had prior to the county getting involved has shrunk exponentially. And so I would recommend any community who's not working with the county, who needs assistance, who can't handle things on their own. I think it's a great program, one that works really well together. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. I see the time frame on this one is April 1st. Can this go 3 readings, or is this going to need a suspension based on the time frame?
Well, I respectfully request a second reading suspension on this again, just so we can, begin to continue, start providing services as soon as possible to the city.
Okay. I'll make the motion for second reading suspension on R 2023-0061. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if you could just please read the last resolution, which I understand is a proposed substitute.
Ordinance number 2023-0008, amending Cuyahoga County Code, Chapter 506, Procurement Card Program Policies and Procedures to approve revised Cuyahoga County Program Card Program Policies and Procedures.
Okay, and if you could just state your name for the record?
Good morning, Paul Porter from the Department of Purchasing.
Okay, and if you would just want to discuss this proposed legislation.
Absolutely. This ordinance represents a revision to Chapter 506 of the County Code, which is the county's procurement card program policies and procedures. This was last revised in 2014. The Ohio Revised Code under Section 301.29 permits the use of procurement cards by counties, and these policies and procedures define the spending, activity, and allowable expense limits, as well as the general processes and procedures related to the use of P cards here in Cuyahoga County. These revisions clean up some of the older language in the existing policy, such as, referrals to the Office of Procurement and Diversity, now the Department of Purchasing, and there were a couple of referrals to the county auditor instead of the fiscal officer in there. In addition, we've defined the individual transaction limit to be $999. We've revised the daily maximum number of transactions and the monthly maximum number of transactions. We've established a list of unallowable purchases, including entertainment, alcoholic beverages, and capital equipment. One thing that I think departments are going to be particularly pleased with is that the new policy and procedure revisions are going to explicitly permit cardholders to designate employees who can use the P card on their behalf for work-related purposes. It's something that I think we've known departments have done from time to time if it makes business sense to, hand your P card to somebody else and let them make an allowable purchase, but it's prohibited under the current policy. So in order to help departments meet that business need, we're establishing that as an allowable action, but maintaining the accountability for that individual cardholder, meaning that they're liable if someone they designate uses the card for an unallowable action. In addition, this new revision establishes a list of progressive disciplinary actions that may occur due to improper use of the card. Just a little background, currently the county has approximately 50 P cards issued, representing a spending authority of up to $454,800 per year, with individual allocations by card ranging from $500 to $50,000, depending on the anticipated purchasing volume for that specific department. 27 different agencies are using P cards, and some of those are divisions within larger departments. Like, for instance, multiple divisions within Health and Human Services have cards, multiple divisions within the Department of Public Works, and in addition to agencies under the county executive, the Board of Elections and County Council has a P card as well. So this program isn't just limited to executive agencies. There are other entities in the county that participate as well. The goal of this basically is just to give departments an easy way to process purchases under $1,000 without having to go through, some of the hoops that would be required to submit it to my department every time they're making one of those smaller purchases. Happy to answer any questions about the program or about the revisions.
Okay, appreciate it. So the first thing I'd ask is, I see there's lots of changes, lots of revisions in the actual procedures that you guys did, which is, I think, a good thing. So if you could just, again, define the dollar limit per card.
Sure. So the dollar limit varies by card based on the need of that department. So it goes all the way up to, some departments that have a smaller number of cards might have a higher dollar amount. For instance, the Board of Elections has only one card, so they have a $50,000 per year spending authority. And in the first few months of the year, they've ranged between like $1,500 and $3,000 in monthly expenditures. Some of the smaller departments, I think our lowest number is $500 in spending authority for the planning commission. They don't make very frequent purchases. I think the only invoice we have for them is an $86 invoice for the month of January. So it really does vary. Typical card amounts are usually in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, and that's the annual amount that the cardholder would be allowed to spend. You know, and it's something that is paid on a monthly basis. It's not like a credit card where there's kind of a revolving balance. When a transaction occurs, a chargeback occurs against that department's account to make sure that all of the transactions from the prior month are fully paid, you know, when the
And
invoice
who
comes.
keeps track of that?
So the P-card program is managed through my department. Currently, Michelle Hicks is the assigned P-card program
There's
administrator.
a specific individual watching these
Correct.
purchases coming.
And there's agency coordinators at each agency that are responsible for collecting, you know, backup documentation like receipts from the card holders at their agency and submitting those to my department on a monthly basis.
Right, so, obviously, I understand the need for something like this, but you can also understand the concern for potential for abuse on something like this if it's not,
Absolutely.
you know, if there are no safeguards in place. So as long as there are safeguards in place, we're okay. Who decides the eligibility for the particular individuals who get the card?
Sure. So on a quarterly basis, we do an amendment that updates the departments that have cards, that updates, you know, the authorized amount by department, and then it authorizes the specific card holders within those departments. We consider any agency eligible to get a card as long as they have, you know, room in their budget that they can kind of allocate towards this. So when we look at who receives a card, usually it's the department director or one of their designees that makes a request to my team to either have their department added as an authorized department, identify a user, switch users if one of their card holders leaves their team, or update that allocated value.
And so just again, just to clarify, so these monies come out of the approved budget of that particular department? These are not in addition
Correct.
to, this is not some other fund, this is just out of each individual department?
Exactly. And within the departments that have multiple, you know, teams that use procurement cards, there could be, you know, people that use it out of Road and Bridge for Public Works, which is a specific account, versus a facilities account for Public Works. Those purchases are charged to the respective account, you know, that person works
So
under.
is there any concern about if a department head or somebody in the department with authority has used the card, is there any concern about not having competitive bids on something where there's a competitive bid requirement on something that they might purchase?
Sure. So part of the reason we do this just for low dollar amounts, like having that under $1,000 maximum allowable purchase, is that that's our threshold for, you know, wanting departments to be competitive about making purchases.
Okay.
This program is not allowable for expenses above that amount. We do look at anything above that dollar amount needing to be competitively pursued in some way, shape, or form.
Right. And then who is the current provider of our P card for the county? And do we
Sure.
bid this service out to somebody, or is this just?
So this is under our banking and treasury services contract with Key Bank.
Okay.
And part of the existing policies and procedures, which this part really isn't being revised much, it specifies how we will solicit, you know, a program administrator. It's just part of our general RFP process. When we look for banking and treasury services, we would expect that anybody responding would have a P card program and would be able to provide this service, whether it's our current vendor or someone else.
Okay, and then if you just could give a few examples of like what a department might use a P card for?
Sure,
I mean, this isn't for
absolutely.
like, I want to grab a Burger King or anything.
No, nothing like that. Like in the example of Public Works being out on a job site and needing a part that they don't have on hand, they could run and make a small dollar purchase, to get that part or
So
supply.
instead of like
that
using
they
your
need.
credit card and getting reimbursed from the county, it's just you use this P card
Exactly.
authority and say, this is what we're.
Another example is some vendors may not want to go through our purchase order process where they provide the good but have to wait for a PO payment. So there was an example for the medical examiner's office, their firearms lab needed to purchase a specific type of ammunition for firearms testing. There were no retailers willing to sell that on a purchase order basis. So conducting that transaction online using a card is what would make the most sense in a case like that.
And I'm just not as familiar with this stuff. So is it debited or is it credited when they use the card?
So the way it works, we have, those funds allocated in a specific account. So each month, the account statement is paid, similar to a credit card. And then that master account where the payment comes out of, there's a chargeback done against the specific department's account so that we can make sure, previously, each department was having to approve the statement in the Infor system, which sometimes meant a longer time to pay. With having the chargeback set up this way, there's one account that we're making the monthly payments out of, and then kind of doing a chargeback against those individual department accounts based on how much they spent that prior month.
One last question for me is, I know you indicated there were 50 P cards. Are there still 50 P cards, or they increased the number based on this legislation?
So this won't impact the number of card holders. It won't impact, the authorized users. We actually just had an amendment that was processed last month through the Board of Control to add some new departments and make adjustments to department allocations. So that figure of 50 was based on my review of our kind of overall spreadsheet of users just this morning.
Right.
So that's a fairly accurate number as of right now. It could go up or down, next time we do an amendment to either add or remove users.
Right. Okay, I'll open the floor to Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Tuma. Directors, nice seeing you again.
Nice to see you too.
Just two very brief ones. When you said the card can be shared with another coworker and the original person is held liable,
Absolutely.
but do you know that it got transferred, or is that part of the reporting purposes? I shared my card with.
Sure. So we do say that they have to give written designation if they're going to have a designee use it. We would look strictly at like the supporting documentation for the transaction. So a receipt that supported the purchase. We're not necessarily saying that the department has to submit something in writing that someone else used it.
Yeah, that was my only
primarily.
question.
Yeah, primarily what we're looking for is, do the receipts support the transaction as an allowable expense for that department?
That thought through the chair just came to me because held liable.
Sure.
I can see a back and forth.
Yeah.
If it gets to that point, and if there was some, Dale Miller had it and gave it to Marty Sweeney, so that you have it, so there's
Sure.
no discussion about it. So, and
Yeah.
the other one is with the receipt.
Uh-huh.
Do they tell you why they need it unless it's evident?
I think there have
Just going
been
a little
times
deeper
that
here.
we've reached out with questions about purchases, but for the most part, the department, submits a receipt and they submit the statement that's been reviewed by the agency coordinator saying that the expenses are legitimate for business needs. So we would maybe ask a question if something looked like it didn't meet a business need.
Perfect.
But we're not necessarily asking the department to justify each amount. We're trying to make this an easy process for them. That's where kind of our review on a monthly basis would come in.
And through the chair, thank you for that answer. Basically, discretion is up to your administrator, which is,
Absolutely.
should work. Thank you.
And I want to stress regarding the chair's question about, misuse of the cards. By and large, this program works very smoothly. When we occasionally have to suspend a user's card, it's usually because they've failed to turn in timely documentation substantiating their expenses. We don't typically see misuse or abuse of these cards. It's much more just administratively, hey, your receipts were due by the 5th, if we don't have them, we're going to temporarily suspend your card. And that's not anything that we have to, request that the bank do. We can use that bank's computer program to complete the suspension on our own. And then when they get us the required documentation, to go ahead and reactivate that card without having to wait for the bank to do anything.
Okay, excellent. Ms. Conwell, you have a question?
The chair to Mr. Porter. Not clear on your answer you gave Councilman Sweeney. So are the receipts all required to be itemized?
Yes, the receipts are required for each specific transaction. And then part of our monthly review process is to go through and review those receipts, as well as the statement that's submitted by the agency coordinator identifying each of those transactions with the receipts attached.
And that goes through Ms. Hicks?
Correct. At this point, it goes through Ms. Hicks, and I will note she's moving over to the medical examiner's office. So we're working on identifying a permanent assignment, but I probably won't make a permanent reassignment until we have a new staff member hired as a replacement. So we will have a bit of a transition, but I do have staff coverage in the interim until we get somebody new in the role.
If a part or a purchase, you gave us an example, if they went out and needed a part
Yes.
per se, if say that was 1,001 cents.
Sure.
What would that staff have to do since it's over the $1,000?
So the way the cards are set up, the transaction would not go through. They would not be able to make a transaction over that, $999 mark. So it just wouldn't go through. The transaction would be declined by the vendor. And in a case like that, they would have to go through the county's more typical process for purchases above 1,000.
Does
This
that include-
program is strictly geared towards purchases that are at the small dollar amount. Anything over that, the department would have to follow our existing processes.
Does that include tax?
Because the county is an entity that's not subject to tax, that is spelled out in our policies and procedures. All transactions should be considered tax exempt, and if we find out during a review of a receipt that tax was charged, we do have a provision in there for vendors to give us a rebate on any tax paid.
Yeah, I was just thinking, say Public Works was out there and they
Sure.
had to run and get a part.
Sure.
That part actually, they needed the part to complete the work, and it actually went over a little of
Yeah.
$1,000. If there was a procedure for them to, hey, this is.
Yeah,
normal.
not on the card. Unfortunately, that's a hard limit, so they wouldn't be able to complete a transaction for over that limit.
My last thing is, you spoke about reports that you hold in the office. I think me and Toom was on the same wavelength. He was asking all my questions this morning. Is there some kind of way that you can give us a report of who holds the P cards and
Sure.
what department, who's eligible to use, and the amounts that each department has up to?
Yes, I can absolutely provide that. So you just want to know which department, who's the authorized user? Can I go ahead and provide who's the coordinator for that team as well? And then the
Amounts, 'cause you said-
annual amount.
Yes,
Okay, yep, I can provide that for you by email if that works.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none. I see the effective date is April 11th. What are you looking for in terms of moving this forward?
I did try to time that out with 3 readings. These are general policy revisions. It's not something that we consider super urgent. So if it can go 3 readings, that's
That'd be
fine.
good.
That April 11th date should
Right.
work.
Okay, with that,
Mr. Chair, it's an ordinance, so we go 3 regardless.
what's that?
It's an ordinance, so we go 3 regardless.
And
Okay.
excuse
Oh,
me,
yes,
Mr.
it is an
Chair.
ordinance, you're right.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, just a reminder about the proposed substitute.
Okay, so I'll make a, do I do the motion for the proposed substitute on this? Okay, so I'll make a motion for proposed substitute 02023-0008 for second reading. Do I have a second? Or to accept it first?
Second.
Yeah, to accept the proposed substitute. All those in favor, I have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The ayes have it. Now I'll make a motion to move proposed substitute 02023, not one of my finer moments, -0008 on for second reading. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that'll move on for second reading.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks for sticking with me. All right. Any other miscellaneous business before the committee this morning? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? All right, a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And the committee will adjourn at 10:55 a.m.